Over here on the right is another inspection robot. This time it's designed for inspecting the insulators. So these are the things that connect the power transmission lines with the towers. And so in this case, you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of volts just feet away from the inspection locations. So it makes sense to have a robot in there doing that rather than having a human up there to do it. So this robot, all it does is climb up and down they call them sheds on the insulator, and takes sensor readings as it moves. Telepresence is another real hotbed in mobility research. So there's a number of startups and some well-established organizations that are developing systems like this. This is the Vigo. It's a telepresence robot, if you will. It's basically teleoperated and provides two-way voice and video communication. Companies like iRobot, who make that PackBot, which I showed you before, are developing these, and there's several others. So this provides the capability of doing remote operations, right? So you could have, even in an office environment, you could have remote staff basically dial in using Skype or other video communications. Or we have interest in it for supporting systems, remote systems, where it's not practical to have staff there to maintain them all the time. Now, obviously, you're only going to get video data back, and what you'd really like to do is be able to manipulate that environment. Well, commercially, that kind of capability isn't here yet, but people are starting to think about it. In fact, DARPA has a program which will start up next year, which they're calling Avatar. You can probably imagine where that's going. So they have grand visions of bringing this to the warfighter, which I guess is a good idea. And as crazy as that may sound, there is a lot of really interesting work going on in sort of mobile manipulation. I'm not going to promise that this video is going to play, but if it will. Hey, you get a little bit of it. This is Petman, being developed by Boston Dynamics for the Army, being used to test chemical protection suits. So obviously there's another environment where you don't want humans involved if you can avoid it. So they're building up a robotics system. They're going to put these suits on the robot and then test them in chemical warfare environments, I guess. Anyways, these are the people who brought you the Big Dog robot, which probably many of you have seen. Very popular on YouTube also. So this isn't going to be in your industrial environment tomorrow, but maybe in 10 years this kind of capability could be there. Or maybe some variant of sort of what you see on the left there with a more mundane looking manipulator on it. Lastly, I'd like to touch on just a couple of topics in safety and regulations which are going to dramatically affect the robotics industry. So the first is in unmanned aerial systems. So today, the FAA governs our national airspace in terms of saying who can fly and how they're going to fly and where they're going to fly. And it's very difficult to have an unmanned aerial system fly in U.S. airspace today. It is done by some police agencies and some border patrol agencies, but those are kind of special circumstances. And just last month, the Congress passed the FAA funding bill, and in that bill was a requirement for the FAA to develop regulations to allow unmanned aerial systems in the national airspace. So that's going to be a very big deal because now commercial operators will be able to fly these sort of unmanned systems similar to what's been flown in Afghanistan and Libya and other places. But they'll be able to use them for commercial applications. So who knows where that's going to go, but obviously there are applications in things like surveying and inspection and security, remote operations. And there's already some companies that are gearing up products around this idea. This company, Lehman Aviation, is a French organization which is building systems specifically targeted at commercial applications. So this particular one, you can see it's kind of able to be operated by a single operator. It's got autopilot, it's got GPS, it's got high-resolution camera. Basically, it goes out, surveys a site, it's able to get geo-referenced imagery, and then come back to the operator. So that is coming. September 2015, I think, is when the regulations are mandated to be in effect. It may happen sooner than that. So it will impact a lot of commercial organizations, especially ones that deal with remote environments. And then finally, human-robot collaboration. So in industrial robotic applications today, they're basically governed by safety regulations, which are promulgated, put out by the RIA, the Robotics Industries of America, and that's been adopted as an ANSI standard. And in that standard, it says essentially that robots will not interact with people because of the inherent safety concerns. So that standard has been in place since 1999, and since then, there has been an ISO standard, which has been adopted in Europe and much of the rest of the world, which explicitly permits human-robot interaction with some constraints on speed and force to maintain certain levels of safety. But basically what has happened is that some of the software and the sensing systems have gotten to the point where they are reliable now enough to prevent or to allow human-robot interaction in a safe way. And so ISO has taken the lead on this, and this new standard, which just came out or just got updated last year, permits this kind of human-robot interaction. So why is that important? It's important because there's a whole class of problems that industrial robotic systems cannot solve today because the technology is not good enough. Because humans are so adept, they're so dexterous, they're smart, they're able to perceive their environment, and robots are pretty dumb and clumsy and not very dexterous. So you'd like the robot to do the things that it is good at, which is like high repeatability, high accuracy, high speed, high payload applications, and let the human do the things that they're good at, like the dexterous stuff, the smart stuff, the things that take decent perception. So that if you can combine those and create a collaborative environment where robots are working with humans, then you have the potential to tackle new problems that aren't solved today. And so the really exciting thing is the RIA, which is our governing body here in the US, is basically taking the ISO regulations and adapting them for use in North America. And in that regulation, there will be permissions or provisions for human-robot collaboration. And that's happening probably this year. They're already in operations, and they're expecting to have that released this year. So that's going to take us one step closer, potentially, to having that sort of 1960s vision of our Rosie the robot maid or servant in our household.
Okay, thank you very much, Clay. Excellent presentation. Thank you.